Just a Thought podcast. Shout out to my co-host Andre. He could not be here today, but I hope he's having a great weekend. We have a special guest on the show. I'm very excited because I have watched her journey from teaching in Africa to teaching in Alaska, and I'm happy to have her on the show. And I'm looking forward to hearing about her experience and about her time teaching in a different continent, and also her passion for teaching and what she's doing now, what's going on now. But first of all, let's it's been a long time. How's everything? How have you
Things
been?
things are good. I mean, it's been since 2016.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Wow.
Yes. Yes. Guys, this is Elizabeth Ferry. I call her Liz. Can you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah. So my name's Elizabeth. I grew up in Maine and really had only knew that bubble for most of my life. And then I met Ray at UMF in Farmington in Maine. Ray was a lax bro and I was a basketball girl.
Yes.
No, but yeah, you've always been just really awesome, even in that environment when we were just stupid college kids. And I'm so happy to see all the cool things you're doing now. So it's crazy that it's 2016. That's a long time ago
Yeah, 7 years
now. It
ago.
seems like
Yeah.
a whole nother life. I don't know about you, but I never predicted I'd be where I am right now then.
No, me too. Like it's kind of I actually have this feeling quite often. Like when I wake up and I'm like here in Spain, I'm in Valladolid, by the way.
Nice.
Valladolid is like 2 hours from Madrid.
Okay.
So sometimes I have that feeling waking up and I'm like, what am I doing here?
How'd I get
Like,
here?
yeah, how
Yeah.
did I get here?
Yeah.
But sometimes that brings like the humbleness, like
Mhm.
to your life. You feel humble for all those steps you had to take to get to what you're doing now.
Yeah.
So it is a good reminder, but sometimes it's hard for me to believe that I am where I am today. And I'm pretty sure you can feel that same feeling, right? Like it's step by step, but like when you actually look back and like see what you've done, it's like it's incredible. And we're both still very young.
Oh, young. I know. It's cool.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome. I
Yeah.
think just trying to take advantage of every opportunity that we've been presented. But it's so ironic for me though, because you've always had so much potential, and we knew you weren't going to stay in Farmington, Maine. Like that wasn't ever going to be your plan. But I thought that was going to be my plan. Like that was the track I was on. Actually, I don't know if you know this about me, Ray. I got voted in high school, my senior year, most likely to never leave my hometown. That was
Wow.
like the superlative I got. And now, I mean, I've traveled a ton. So it's just ironic to think back to that version, that trajectory that my life was headed on.
Yeah,
So
what would you tell yourself during that time? Like if you could go back to that time where you'd be like, hey, you're gonna be teaching in Africa, you're gonna be teaching in Alaska, you're not gonna be living in Maine. What would your old self think?
she'd be shocked. And I'm still shocked that I got on the plane, I think, just because I was so comfortable in my bubble of what I knew, and everything was like it was successful and safe, and I knew everybody knew me, and I'm really proud of myself that I kind of popped the bubble and got out of that, because my life
Yeah.
has improved so. I mean, I had a very nice life, and it would have been very nice had I stayed in Maine. But the people that I've met and how my perspective has changed, I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's pretty cool to hear. Like the fact that you can look back and just like realize you've grown from what you've were doing before, like that's an amazing thing. So can you tell me a little bit about why did you choose teaching, and like how did you find the passion? Because you have to have patience. I'm a
Hmm.
teacher right now. I teach kids, I teach adults. I'm not working at a school or anything. I'm working at like extracurricular like academy type thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cool little gig. I like it. But the patience I have for kids is like I'm surprised because I was never a patient person growing up. I always wanted things done my way, and like everything had to be done. and I had to control it.
Yeah.
But being out here and like becoming a teacher was very difficult at first. And uh it was the kids. Like the kids know that you don't want to, they know that all right, you're tired, it's the morning. They know that they can get away with some things and they use
Yeah.
it to their ability. I have so many examples, but like my first year teaching, it was just like, all right, I had to find something that can help me calm down because the kids are like testing my patience. So how was it for you being like after graduating and like doing your first year teaching? What was that first year like?
Yeah, my first year was really unique because I jumped right into Peace Corps. So, like, we graduated in May, and I was in Tanzania that July. So I really hit the ground running. So it was a really unique experience because I think UMF really prepared me for an American classroom, but I was not at all prepared for what I found in Tanzania. And I was living in a village. I'm not sure how much you know about the experience, but I was living in a village, super small. Peace Corps is like one of the best foreign aid programs that we have because it's not like, oh, we're just going to dump money into your little thing and then leave you and good luck. We were in villages working in the same place for over 2 years. So like I became fluent in Swahili, waweza kuongea sasa hivi, like I can speak fluently in Swahili. So we're able to really make that connection in Tanzania, which was cool. But teaching itself, yeah, I try to tell myself that there's a reason for every behavior. Like if a kid is testing you, that there's a reason for that. If a kid is being really annoying or they're really upset, there's a reason for that. And so I try to give kids the benefit of the doubt. It's not always easy, like you said.
It's not always easy at
Yeah,
all.
but patience is, I would say, the number 2 quality a teacher should have. So yeah.
And what do you find the most what do you find the most like that you feel like you're getting a benefit? What do you find most beneficial about teaching and like how and why is that the case?
When I see students improve and when they can recognize that they're improving. So I've actually had, in my various experiences, I've taught everything, but I'm a trained English teacher. And so right now I'm teaching creative writing. And so when a kid is like, look how much better I am at writing, they can really see their improvement and they can feel it. And they go from, especially boys, they start the year, the writing's stupid, I don't want to write, that's never what I want to do. And then seeing them grow throughout the year and then how proud they are. And I've had parents who have reached out and said, I never thought my kid's favorite subject would be writing. So those moments really kind of make it worth it for me, just
Yeah,
having
that's pretty cool.
feel that they learned something. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And how are the parents? Do you find them difficult to deal with, or are
Depends where I've
you?
worked. So Peace Corps parents were obviously Tanzanians were awesome. And they were just so supportive of their kids' education. And then I shifted to teaching in Maine for a year at a high school. And I was teaching alt ed there, which is kind of like students who don't fit the mold of public education for various
Mhm.
reasons. So that was kind of a more difficult experience. Then I went to Alaska and was teaching at like an independent school where the parents were paying their tuition. So those
Wow.
parents were very involved, arguably too much.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine
Yeah.
that. I'm so excited to have you on because like I want to talk a lot about your cultural shock in Africa and in Alaska, but I want to talk about more of like what got you into it. Like, so you joined the Peace Corps. Why did you decide to go into the Peace Corps?
I,
Because Peace Corps is a lot of volunteering. It's a lot of time consuming activities, and it's a very good thing to be a part of, but not that many people do it. So why did you choose to do it?
that is the best question that people ask. And that whole time is, like this time suck in my life. I had 3 courses that I was looking at before graduation, and we're all in this identity crisis at the end of college.
Yeah, yeah.
I had a job lined up in Farmington. I could have stayed there and done that. And my parents live an hour away and my whole family's in Maine. I had that life. And then I applied for the Peace Corps kind of on a whim. I had some mentors that had been talking about it. And essentially I had this one teacher, my student teaching mentor, his name's Travis, and he had done a fair amount of travel, and just kind of, he didn't live an easy life. And I was like, I wonder if I actually have the chops to do that, because I've stayed in this comfort bubble. Am I really that good of a teacher? So it kind of, to me, was a challenge that I wanted to take. And I also wanted to go somewhere else. I had never really been anywhere else.
Yeah.
I wanted to see if I could do it, essentially. And then when I got in, I was like, okay, I have to do it, because it's actually pretty competitive. Now they don't accept everybody. And so when I got in, I said, okay, I got to do this thing. But getting on the plane when I knew I was not going to know anyone for the next 2.5 years was a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. Did you choose Tanzania, or did you choose another place and they said you couldn't?
No, that's why it ended up being so crazy, because I was really specific. I researched countries in East Africa and picked this job in Tanzania, but there are only 4 spots for teaching English in Tanzania. So it's like, okay, I'm probably not going to get this. So I'll apply for this one thing. And if I get it, then I have to go, because it's so unlikely that I'll get it. So yeah, no, but you can. Peace Corps is like my husband, who I met there. We can talk about that too. But
yeah, we're gonna get into it. Yeah.
Yeah, but he just said, send me anywhere. And so that he just happened to get there, but I was specific. I only applied for that one.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's talk about it, because I remember before you graduating, you were like, yo, I'm going to Africa. I'm going to Tanzania. And from that moment I was like, all right, I need to like follow what she's gonna be doing, because that could be an idea, teaching just in general in a different country, like that, maybe that might spark an idea, which it eventually did for me. Like I have 2 friends named Tori as well that both taught in Korea, and now one is teaching in Turkey, I believe. But you were one of the reasons why I'm teaching in a different country now.
Awesome.
So when I found out you were going to Africa, I was like, yo, I need to follow. I need to see what she's doing. So take me through that first day, getting on the plane, going to Tanzania. What was your nerves like? What was going through your head while you were on the plane?
Oh my God, it was ridiculous. And it's like a super long flight. So we left from JFK and went to South Africa, and then to Tanzania. But there were 60 of us.
How long is the flight?
Oh, it was like 16 hours. It was 2 flights, but total is at least 16 hours. But there were 60 of us Americans who didn't know each other. There was one married couple, obviously they knew each other, but everyone else, complete strangers on this plane, going, knowing that we're going to spend the next 2+ years if we make it together. So it's like everyone's trying to, feel each other out, where people from. And there was this doofus from Alaska who had never left Alaska before. So I actually met Martin straight off the bat. We were friends immediately. So that was pretty cool. But it was just this combination of trying to meet these American friends you were now going to be transported into this whole new world. Every expectation I had was false. That's what everyone tells you when it's like, give me advice, I'm about to join the Peace Corps, is to throw every expectation out the window, because you couldn't prepare for it.
Yeah. Wow. So you're in a plane with 60 Americans. What was running through your mind? Like, I have to engage so I can have some type of like family for the next 2 years? Or was it like, no, let me go off on my own and let me see how things are, and then let me later introduce myself?
I was not brave at that point. I very much needed to create people who I felt comfortable with. So I was trying to be a social butterfly at first and get a network of people, because my parents, and again, I'll try to be as kind as possible, but my parents were not in support of me going, just because they're typical Americans. They really thought I was going to get hurt. They didn't want me to go to this new place without them. So I think I was a little bit nervous that something was going to happen to me, which nothing happened to me. I had an amazing time. but I think I was skeptical of what it was going to be. So I definitely was trying to create a network of people who would support me, which was really important because it ended up
Yeah.
being, it was really isolating at times. And I had never been the one that stood out before. That was a very new concept for me. And that showing the privilege that I had, because that's a lot. That part was challenging at first, for sure, to stand out so much. I'm also really tall, and Tanzanians are not that tall. So both I was white and tall and a woman. So I had a big target on my back.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Um, and it makes sense that you have that feeling of I need to create a family because Mainers in general, I think, are really
Yeah.
it's a family oriented state. And you guys are very close to like your family.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. So all right, you get off the flight. Now you're in this whole different atmosphere. What was the first day like? And tell me, and what was the first night like as well? Could
Oh
you
my gosh.
sleep or
A little. I think I slept a little bit. I was sharing a room with two other girls. So they put us in, we were in this like gated. So we got off the plane, we went through customs, which was crazy. It was so busy. I'd never been to an airport that busy. And obviously the language barrier was tricky because none of us knew anything at that point. So the Peace Corps employees were really nice, trying to shuffle us into this bus. I cried on the bus ride from the airport to the place where we were staying, which was like a 40-minute bus ride. And Martin actually gave me his sunglasses so I could not look like an idiot. So I put these sunglasses on and I'm crying behind them, just looking around. I mean, I had never seen a place like what I was seeing. And
yeah?
the culture
It,
shock was really, really fast and intense, definitely.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you're coming from it's I'm not gonna lie, the move that you made is it's an aggressive move,
Mm.
but it takes a lot of guts to do what you did. A lot. It's a great but okay, so you didn't sleep that much the first night. How was the first couple of days? Were they going but did they go by slow or was it like wow, like it's actually pretty fast paced here?
Yeah, super fast. And I actually have no experience in my life that I can remember as clearly as I can remember each day in Tanzania. I was there for over 2 years, but there are so many moments I can relive so vividly because every day was so different and foreign and challenging. And so that first set of days, Peace Corps does a really good job of kind of initiating you into the culture. But the best thing that they did for us was that they put us with a host family. So I was living after like day 2 of medical stuff and money and whatever. They sent us to a smaller town. We arrived in the city and then we went to a smaller town and stayed with host families. So each of us had our own family in this little region. And what I thought was culture shock the first time, that experience was even more because I'm communicating with this family, playing gestures like, thank you, trying to, I'm so happy. Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
it was
yeah.
just, I didn't know anything at this point. And this wonderful family, I hit the lottery with my family. I still keep in contact with my mom, my host mom.
Oh, that's
We're
pretty
still in
cool.
touch. Yeah. And
That
so
is pretty cool.
we lived with them for 3 months. So that was when yes, it went by fast, like you asked, but
Mhm.
each day was full of learning the language, the culture, everything. I was essentially an infant and they were teaching me how to walk. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's crazy how important the hands are when you don't speak the language. You use your hands and your
Yeah.
facial expressions. It can get you so many places. So, all right, what was the food like? Because we're so used to having sandwiches for lunch. We're used to having big breakfasts, the dinner as well. Usually eating early morning, 8 o'clock, 12 o'clock lunch, and then a 6 o'clock dinner. So how was the meal? How was the meals, and how was it easy? Was it hard for you or easy for you to adjust to the way they ate?
It was hard at first. And again, as you said, my transition was pretty extreme. My stomach had a lot of issues with the food at first, just because it's very different. You
Yeah.
don't vegetables really, unless you boil them. Fresh vegetables aren't really a thing. Fresh fruit, there's amazing fresh fruit.
How's
But
the taste? The taste is a lot different, right?
the fruit is way better. I've never had fruit like that before.
Yeah.
But like the concept of eating a salad is not a thing. Everything is either boiled or fried. The food was okay. It actually depends on which region you're in. Like my husband was in the coastal region, so he had such good food, fish and more fruits and vegetables. But where I ended up living, so after that 3 months with the family, if you pass your language test and you kind of prove that you're not going to die on your own, and you
Wow.
get to become a real, it's funny but serious also.
Yeah.
Then you get to become a real volunteer, and then they put you in your site. And so like my husband's site was on the complete opposite side of the country. He was actually on an island, and I was in the mountains in a totally different region. So we grew a lot of corn and potatoes because it was a colder climate. So the food where I wasn't awesome, because it really wasn't about taste. It was about nutrition,
Survival.
just trying to
Yeah.
survive. Yeah, it's
Trying to
caloric
survive.
intake. It wasn't supposed to taste good. It's just supposed to fill you up.
Oh, wow. So did that make you a little homesick at first, or
Yeah, I
you're
think
like,
I
oh,
was.
it's not that bad?
Yeah, I was still on the Kool-Aid where, this is what we're doing, we're making it work. But when I was eventually on my own, I ate popcorn a lot for dinner. Because also I didn't have electricity or water, so I'm like cooking popcorn over my charcoal stove. But
Okay.
yeah, so I certainly tried everything and had a good experience with that. But there just wasn't a lot of food available. Like my students weren't eating meat regularly. It was rice, beans. In some African cultures, it's called like fofo, but it's like
Oh,
that corn
fufu.
base. Yeah, the
Fufu,
white,
right?
yeah, the white
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like that. We call it ugali, but yeah, so that was a staple.
Yeah, and I heard you use your hands to get it and then you dip it in some kind of gravy, right?
You make a little, yeah, with beans. You make a little ball, you put your thumbprint in it to make it so it's like a bowl. And then, yeah, you with your hands, just your right hand though, not your left hand.
Why not your left hand?
That's your bathroom hand.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow,
People are
and
taught not to be left-handed because the left hand is your dirty hand.
so what can you do with your left hand there?
Not much.
Not much. Are you serious?
I mean, you can use it for work, obviously, but like even people made fun of me when I came back because I would be at the table and like putting it behind my back and just using my right hand because
Yeah.
truly, I mean, to be respectful, people don't use their left hand very often when eating. Working is whatever, but even people who write with their left hand when they're kids, they're like chastised for doing that because they know it's not culturally
Wow.
appropriate. It's crazy.
Wow, that's
Different. It's
interesting.
different.
I did
Yeah.
not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. So, what was the living conditions like? So you said you had no water, no electricity. I'm guessing you didn't have Wi-Fi. Uh, what was the living situation like, and how long did it take for you to become accustomed to that?
That was I would say the isolation was the most challenging part at first, because I was the only American within an hour of where I was, and so that was challenging, but then getting used to how Tanzanians live, and this is why I gained so much respect for their culture and their work ethic and everything that they do, because it just takes so much more effort just to survive than it does for us to wake up and in your bug net. So malaria is a big deal in Tanzania, so we slept
Yeah,
under
yeah.
mosquito nets. So like just to wake up and kind of assess the situation, I would look under my bed. People had snakes in their houses and rats. So I would like look under my bed before I put my feet down, get up, get water. Like my students were amazing. I could talk about them for hours, but they would help me fetch water. So we had to go to the well, which was a 30-minute walk. And then we came back with buckets on our head and carrying on our arms. And that's the water I would use for days at a time. So like brushing your teeth with dirty water and making sure you don't swallow any, boiling water to shower if you wanted to shower with, or like take a bucket bath because it's just
Wow.
scooping and
Wow.
dumping. Yeah. So just like everyday things, doing laundry by hand, cooking everything that takes hours to cook, walking everywhere. No one was driving in cars. So yeah, just all of those little things that we take for granted. Definitely. How long did it take? Probably 3 months to
3 months
really
to
feel like
get it.
I knew what was happening in my house. So I had the 3 months with my family, and then I moved to my house in my village, and then probably 3 months from there, and then I felt more at home.
Wow. So
Yeah.
did you ever this checking for snakes would scare me. I love snakes, but not living with them.
Yeah. I didn't
Have you
have any in my
ever
house. I had rats and cockroaches, but
you
no
had a
snakes.
rat wait, you had rats in your
A lot of us did. It's very normal. And Tanzanians would actually make fun of me that I cared about them. Like, you shouldn't care. They're called panya, and they're like, Usiogope panya, don't be scared of the rats. They're, who cares? You
oh,
know,
you were scared of them.
didn't like them. I mean, I wanted to get rid of them. I didn't like them in my house.
Yo, I would have died. I have a rat phobia. I have a big phobia of rats.
I was a germaphobe before Peace Corps, right? And it really is like you don't know what you're capable of until you're forced to do it. And
Yeah,
so
that's
my
true too.
my parents could not believe that I was doing some of the things that I was doing because I didn't even drink off other people's water bottles before that. And now I'm like doing all these things that they never thought I would do. So
Isn't that crazy
yeah.
that you like the stuff you thought before you couldn't do, and then like you were actually put in that situation where you had to do it?
But it gives you respect for people who do it all the time, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Before I ask you some really deep questions, I want to know more about the experience.
Yeah.
Uh, did you ever encounter any animals that you haven't seen before? Like, what have you seen out there? And like, because we usually see these animals at the zoo, but now you're out in their habitat. How did that make you feel?
I will say people are, that's a good, it's a very common question that I get. And they're not like running wild everywhere. So Tanzania and Kenya both have their big game in reserves. So
Yeah,
they're protected. So of course I've seen them, but only when we were on safari, like going on safari. But my house, where my region where I lived, the road from the city, so it's a 15-hour drive from the city to where I was living. And one of the roads that goes through actually goes through a game
15
park.
hours.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
On a bus with a million other people and chickens and just like a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it's like you can't like you're not
No,
comfortable.
no. And but
Jesus.
the road went through a national park. So while I'm traveling to my house, then I could see them for free, which was really great. I didn't have to go on safari to see them. But the only animal encounter that I had in like natural life that wasn't in a reserve, I had baboons or monkeys in my
Oh
village.
no.
I was training
Oh,
for a half marathon
oh
around
no.
Kilimanjaro. It was really, that was a cool experience too. So I was running on this path that doesn't have any houses. And there were these monkeys, and I was really afraid. They didn't do anything to me, but I hadn't seen them before. So that was the only experience. I like picked up a rock, and I had a rock with me while I was running in case I,
What is that gonna do? You know how crazy baboons are?
it was crazy. They weren't that big. They were fine. But yeah, so that's like the only animal encounter. My husband saw some snakes. I really didn't have anything crazy other than insect stuff. There were some really gross insects.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you how was the mosquito? Because I heard mosquitoes in Africa are like there's no comparison to how bad they are in the States.
Yeah.
How
No,
was
they're
that?
next level. And tsetse flies too are there. So we had to wear repellent a lot of the time. But because I lived in a cold region, they actually weren't so bad where I was. But when we were in the city, we had to be especially cautious of them, like wearing socks at night or not going out at night, and the repellent. And then we had to take a prophylaxis every day, a pill that would kind of protect your body from malaria. And my husband actually, he got malaria while we were there, and that was
Ooh,
really serious. That was probably one of the scariest moments of my service was when he
wow.
got malaria.
Wow, wow. And
Yeah.
yeah, so tell me a little bit about that. What happened when he got malaria? Like how did it end up getting treated, and how did he recover?
We are just really lucky that we had healthcare, and Peace Corps is the best healthcare that I've ever had in my life. They paid for everything. They really take care of you while you are gone. And we had really great doctors, Tanzanian doctors, not American doctors, but they were awesome. So we found out he got malaria while we were on vacation. And then we had to ride on the bus 10 hours. He's like half asleep. He was not doing well. And we ended up going to a hospital in the city, and he stayed in the hospital for like 5 days trying to get he had jaundice in his eyes. It was not good. It was really scary. But he's just lucky that we caught it early and that we had that health care, because a lot of Tanzanians die from malaria, especially kids.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy.
It's a lot.
So you and your husband now, congrats, by the way.
Thanks.
So you guys met out there. How did that bond happen? Because he's from Alaska, you're from Maine. I mean, you guys come from similar. I mean, both places are very big, but small population of people.
Yeah.
So maybe you guys can relate a bit because you guys like to hike, hunt, a lot of the activity that is do. No, you, but the in Maine, yes.
Yeah.
So some of the activities are kind of the same, more or less.
Sure. Yeah, the
How did
lifestyle.
you? Yeah, the lifestyle. So how did you guys meet, and how was that the first encounter like when you guys saw each other?
Yeah, we were friends first. So I think he's brilliant. So I was impressed by how smart he was. And he was impressed that I actually knew how to teach. So ironically enough, one of my criticisms of the Peace Corps actually is that they don't spend enough time teaching volunteers how to teach, because there were only like 3 people who had education backgrounds. And now everyone else who is volunteered to do this thing is now being put in a classroom and they don't even know what they're doing. So that part, like my husband, for example, has a science background. So he was teaching science, but he didn't know how to teach. And as you know, knowing how to teach is pivotal. So I think Martin was just impressed that I knew anything about education. So we started talking about the experience of what we were about to do. And we were friends first, and we were actually I was super nervous to see if it was going to become more, because at that time, as I referenced, I wanted to make sure I had friends. So I didn't want to lose this friendship that I had built at trying to make it more. But we talked on the phone. We had like brick phones, like flip phones, the smart, not the smartphones, but you know what I'm talking about?
Like the old
flip
razor phones?
Yeah.
Really?
Not a razor, but the fat ones. Like
Oh
just
yeah,
the,
yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, so we had those, and we talked on the phone every night in Tanzania. And so we'd speak Swahili in our villages all day, but then we'd speak English with each other every night and talk about our day. So that's kind of how we got to know each other. And then, because like I said, we were living in totally different areas. And every time we'd have vacation, we'd meet up and hang out, and we just became really close because, again, experiences like that really bond you, similarly to college, but Peace Corps.
Yeah. Yeah, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And how long did it take for you to learn Swahili?
To be fluent, a
Yeah,
year.
to be fluent, yeah.
A year. Yeah, we had to be able to pass that test after the first 3 months, but that was mostly like conversational stuff and just survival. Where's the bathroom? Where's the hospital? Help me, please. So the basic language came first. And then after a year of being there, I felt confident enough to do nearly everything.
Wow, and do they only speak Swahili, or do they speak French? Do they speak other languages? Just Swahili?
Tribal languages. So like my tribe was Kihehe, so I can greet elders in Kihehe. So they speak tribal languages, and then Swahili, and then English. So we have to teach in English because, again, this is a whole another tyrant we can get on, but English is the language that they're tested in. So it's not their main language, but they have to be able to take tests in this language to succeed in school. So he was teaching chemistry in English. Can you imagine if we made our students do that, to take science? If they're studying Spanish in high school, we made them take their science test in Spanish. That's crazy.
Yeah, that would be crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
That would be horrible. For me, it would be horrible. It would be horrible for me.
For them too, because it wasn't even assessing what they knew about science. It was ultimately always assessing what they knew about English. And that's why my job of teaching English was so important.
Mm. Can you tell me what was the most memorable time you had in your classroom, and then the most memorable time you had in Tanzania?
Mm, I miss my students so much.
Mm,
I really bonded with them because teachers, unlike in America and other countries as well, teachers are not supposed to have not a friendship, but building rapport in Tanzania was not important to Tanzanian teachers. Like that wasn't something that they really cared about. They were there to teach their content and that was it. And so when my students knew that I cared about them and we started to build a relationship, um, it just was so special. And they knew that every time. Also, I will say a challenge for me that I don't like to talk about very often was corporal punishment. Um, so in Tanzania, it's legal to punish kids by hitting them with sticks. And
mm.
I never did that. I was very much against it. And I tried to model different ways to hold kids accountable. But that was really hard for me. And so my most favorite moments always were the sigh of relief that kids got when I walked in because they knew that they were going to be safe in my classroom for the next hour or whatever. And
Wow.
that allowed, they knew that I had expectations of them and I was going to hold them to those, but it wasn't going to be through intimidation or scare tactics. So, and I guess my most proud moment goes along with that because 3 teachers at my school stopped doing it because they wanted to learn alternative techniques. So that was a huge success. Not everyone stopped, which ate at me, but 3 did. So that's good.
Okay. All right. Before you answer the most your
Oh.
most memorable moment in Tanzania, I actually have another one. What was the moment that made you cry in your classroom
Mm, yeah, that
of
has to be
happiness?
of happiness.
Of happiness.
Oh my gosh. The giggles. I never heard students laugh. Like when I was in the staff room and other people were teaching, there was no laughter in my school. And so
Mm,
hearing kids laugh in school and them saying that things were fun, the last month that I was there was very emotional because kids knew that I was leaving and they didn't understand why I left. So crying of joy, but also crying of sadness, just that last bit, spending time with them and trying to soak up and treasure those last moments were really important. So I cried a lot the last month.
yeah, I can imagine. Because to you, you're like to them, you're like you're their hero. Like you are able to go to a place and provide them not only with the language, you provide them with care, love, and if they see people like that from different countries being able to do that, it brings them a lot of joy. So I can only imagine how the emotions were for you, how the emotions were for your students. But it's a really special moment when people from other parts of the world connect and are able to find something to bring them together.
Mm,
So it's a really cool thing. I can
it is.
imagine it was really intense for you.
It was a lot. And especially because it was so bittersweet. Like it was time for me to go. I mean, I'd been there a long time and I was ready to come back home and see my family. I didn't see my family the whole time. They didn't come see me and I didn't come home to visit. So I hadn't seen
Mm.
them for over 2 years. So I was ready to go and start the next chapter of my life. But that meant to them, to my students, that I was abandoning them and I was choosing this other life instead of them. And that really hurt me a lot because they taught me just as much as they did more for me than I did for them, really,
Right.
in the grand scheme of things. So it was hard to leave them.
Wow, that's cool. And what was your most memorable time in Tanzania?
Gosh, one time, right? What? One single moment? Oh my gosh. One time. There's like so many little funny stories that I think about. But one moment. It was probably the program that I did. It's called Huru, which means freedom in Swahili. And it was this, so as volunteers, you teach, but then you try to do other programs as well to like build community and blah, blah, blah. Well, this program was designed for menstrual health. So it is totally taboo. You do not talk about sex in Tanzania. You don't talk about periods. You don't talk about anything like that. But kids still are doing all these things and it's happening to them. So it's not good to just avoid the subject. So there was this program that we were trying to implement with Tanzanians that gave girls reusable pads so that because they're using, I mean, God knows what, paper, grass, nothing. They're just not going to school when they're on their periods because they don't know they don't have anything to take care of themselves. So they stay home. And that's not fair for young girls to have to miss school because of something that's out of their control. So we did this program where we had I wrote a grant and we had these reusable pads that girls could wash and reuse. And so the day that we brought those to the village and gave them to the girls, the gratitude, and we taught them how to use it. It wasn't just like, here, good luck. We had like educational sessions, and these are with Tanzanians. These are not Americans, like Tanzanians teaching Tanzanians how to use them and talking about all these things that they've never talked about before with adults. They were able to ask questions in this safe space. It was just really rewarding because they had an opportunity that they were so grateful for, that was so important to their livelihood and their happiness. So that was probably one of the highlights. It was a really, really, really good day.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine. Especially not having the resources, right? To be able to know how to cope with having your period or being able to get help. Because I mean, some of the things you said, they use grass, they use paper. A lot of that is really bad. And you guys being able to give them those resources and being able to help them, because you're not only providing more resources, you're helping them physically, and you're giving them a lot of benefits,
Yeah.
so
Education too,
it's
like learning how to
education as well. And that's important, like, because you're in an area where they don't have that stuff, so being able to give that to them that's really cool. Wow, that's pretty deep.
and that it was sustainable. So it's not like if I just gave them, here's a box of tampons, good luck. Like it was reusable. So because they're super, the cleanliness in Tanzanian culture is really important. They bathe way more than we do, even though it's harder to bathe there. The cleanliness is really important. Washing of the hands before every meal. It's called chimbadawa. So you have to wash your hands before you eat. You can't eat until you wash your hands. And so that part of their culture is really important. So why not do something sustainable like a reusable pad where they're going to wash it and then they can use it lasts a whole year. So it wasn't like it was a one and done situation. So yeah, that was definitely a highlight.
Wow. All right. So can you tell me about your darkest times in Tanzania? Just give me one story if you can. And how were you able to overcome that situation?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's really two categories of the stuff that I don't like talking about, like the things that were really hard that weren't awesome. And I don't talk about this with everyone. Like when I share my experiences with my current students, I leave these parts out. But the two things that we experienced that were the hardest were corporal punishment, having to watch that, and then harassment. That was real. And it wasn't to the point that my parents thought it was going to be. Like nothing extreme happened to me, but just the consistency of harassment was pretty real. But the hardest moment was definitely corporal punishment. These two girls had tried to run away from the village, and they got caught, and they were brought back to school to kind of make like a public display of what happens to you when you break the rules. And it was just I can still hear the sounds, which was pretty horrific. I was pretty shaken up for a while after it. But so in Tanzania, the punishment is that boys get hit on the hand with a stick, and I'm sorry, boys get hit on the butt with a stick and girls get hit on the hand. But this day, to make a spectacle of those girls, they were beaten pretty badly, because this essentially was a scare tactic, like, don't run away, this is what will happen to you if you run away. And just the crying and the screaming was a lot. It really was a lot. But again, with cultures that use that, which we used to, but I always tell people, like, whenever I talk about corporal punishment, America's not perfect. We used to do this as well. We would hit students when they were bad. Like a lot of countries
back in the day,
a lot of countries do it now and or have done it. So we're not above anyone else. But Tanzanians just think it's easier to intimidate than to educate, because it is hard. You know it as a teacher. Like when a student makes a poor choice, you're trying to hold them accountable. But to me, I use logical consequences. So for example, if a class is super talkative and they can't control themselves, I will say, okay, now you guys can't be trusted to choose your own seat. Now I'm going to choose your seat. That consequence matches the behavior. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
Yeah.
in Tanzania, the consequences were all physical. Like none of them matched what the offense was. So those days were really hard days. And they made it so to the fact that I started to become a little bit estranged from those teachers who used it a lot, and kind of just stayed friendly with the group of teachers who didn't use it. And I really would have loved to stay close with everybody, but it was just too hard for me to kind of associate with people who would do that to kids.
Wow. Wow.
It's tough.
Thanks for sharing that. That's deep. So where else have you traveled to in Africa? Have you only just been to Tanzania, or have you branched out and you went somewhere else?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see my nice scar here. I had emergency surgery while I was there because, like I was saying, you have to use your hands for everything.
Yeah.
And so it was just this freak thing. It was like overuse. I tore a tendon in my thumb. And so I had to get evacuated to South Africa for surgery. And I was there. The Peace Corps gives you 40 days of medical leave before they kick you out. I
Oh
was
my
there,
God. I
I was
didn't
there
know
for
that.
38 days.
Oh, so right on the mark. If you would have stayed there past that, you would have got kicked out.
Mhm.
Oh wow.
So that was actually a pretty low time too, to be honest. I was very and that was toward the beginning of my service. That was still in the first year. And so that was really hard for me. So I've been to South Africa, didn't do a lot there, but I did some things. And then on the way back after our service ended, Martin and I went to Morocco for 3 weeks, and Morocco was incredible. We kind of wanted to wean our way home. We didn't just want to go straight back to America. So we went to Morocco, and then we went to Germany, and then we went back to the States.
Oh wow. And how was Germany?
Germany was fun. So his family is from there, so we stayed with his family. I had
Oh,
never been,
okay.
but yeah, Germany, the food, all the weight I had lost in Tanzania, I gained back in Germany.
Because they eat, because the European culture, more or less, they love to eat carbs like bread, rice is like a very big part of their
Meat and
meals.
cheese.
Cheese too, the
Yeah,
dairy in general.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, that's
No, it
pretty
was fun.
cool.
Yeah.
So you leave Tanzania. Now
Yes.
you come back, you do your trip to Germany, you do your trip to Morocco. Now you go to a opposite climate. You jump back. Now you go back to the cold. You go to Alaska. How was Alaska? How was your first day in Alaska?
Yeah. So I actually spent a year in Maine in between, because I hadn't seen my
Oh,
family.
okay.
We lived apart. He went back to Alaska. We lived apart for 1 year because I hadn't seen my family. And so we had talked
Yeah.
about whether or not I would move to Alaska, but I really wanted to be with my family. So I actually spent a year in Maine, teaching, but the climate shock was real still in Maine, transitioning to that.
And were
So
you were you in were you in the southern part of Maine, or did you go back where
I was
you
in
live?
Farmington.
You were in Farmington. Oh wow.
I worked at Mount Blue. I took the job that I had lined up I just took it back. So I took it it was like a part-time thing though, because I came back late in the year. So yeah, I worked at Mount Blue for 1 year.
All right. So how was the transition going back?
Oh my God. I cried a lot again. I actually remember one distinct story that's funny. It was the third day back, and my little sister had a varsity soccer game, and I went to the soccer game, and watching everyone yell and scream at these kids playing soccer who were like all decked out in like nice cleats and jerseys. And it was so bizarre to me because I had been watching people play football, soccer in Tanzania my students would share a cleat. So like one kid would have the right cleat and another kid would have the left cleat. So I'd been watching soccer be played in Tanzania for 2 years in the way that they do in Tanzania. And now I'm watching a bunch of white people play soccer with the nicest stuff and everyone's yelling at them and it's so serious. And it was very weird. That was reverse culture shock to an epitome. That was nuts. But yeah, that year was hard transitioning back and having all these resources. A kid broke a pencil on purpose one time and I freaked out at him and he had no idea why I was so mad about it. But then I explained later about how precious that would have been where I just spent 2 years of my life living.
Yeah,
so
right.
It was hard. I tried not to like snap at people for stuff that wasn't their fault. But I definitely my perspective had been changed. And so different things were important to me than they used to be.
Do you think going back home, do you think that's something you needed before you made that next step to Alaska?
Yeah, I'm glad. Yes, I missed Martin. So that year apart was challenging because we were still just talking on the phone. But being with my family and with my sister after being gone for so long was very important to me. So we spent that year apart. And then Martin and I moved to Alaska. He came to meet me in Maine. We drove 5,500 miles from Maine through Canada to Alaska.
Oh my, wait. How many hours? How many hours is that?
It was 12 days, but we didn't drive the whole day. Like we took some breaks. We were camping and we saw some people that we knew along the way, but it was 5,500 miles. So
12 days.
Yeah. It was fun. It was super fun. And we've actually done it again. And we're about to do it again when we move from DC to Alaska this summer.
Wait, so when you move from DC, when you go back to Alaska, are you gonna stop in Maine or are you just gonna go straight to Alaska?
It doesn't make sense to go north and then north again. So we'll see my family this spring and say goodbye to them then. And then we'll be going straight from Virginia to
12 days. That is insane. Oh my God.
It's fun though.
Yeah, I mean, not for me. I would I would prefer to take a plane. I'm not gonna lie to you. But
all of our stuff in our car.
Yeah, it makes sense. It does. It makes sense.
Flying is expensive.
Yeah, the plane, yes, it does make sense. But to be honest with you, I have patience for some things, but like I would just get anxiety like the 5th day, like when are we gonna get there? And if I hear 7 more days, I'm gonna go nuts. That's too much. So all right, so you leave Maine, you go to Alaska. What part of Alaska did you move to?
We're in Anchorage.
Anchorage. Now is Anchorage is it I think Fairbanks is Anchorage or Fairbanks the most populated?
Anchorage is.
Okay. So you moved to Anchorage. Mm-hmm. How was the first night?
It was weird moving to Anchorage because everyone thinks exactly what I thought. It's funny that I keep moving to these places that everyone has stereotypes about, because I thought Alaska was going to be super remote and not have much there, but Anchorage is very much a city and a West Coast city. Its homeless population is that's a big thing there. There's a ton of restaurants there. There's skyscrapers there. Like it's a city. People don't understand that. So I was just super surprised of how things were in Anchorage itself.
Is it more of because Portland, you guys consider Portland a city in Maine?
Way more than Portland, Maine.
Was way more than Portland.
There's 300,000 people there. In Alaska.
1,000. Oh my God. So and wait, in Anchorage alone, 300,000.
Yeah. It's a city.
It's big. It's kind of big.
It's not Seattle. It's not Seattle or New York City, but it's a city for sure.
Yeah. Wow. And what were some of the things that took you a long time to get accustomed to?
Seeing moose in the city. So Anchorage has a rule where you can't hunt moose or bear. So there are moose and bear in the city. So we're downtown. There's the skyscraper. There's the road light, whatever. What is that called? What's it? Stoplight. There's a stoplight, and then there's a moose right there, a humongous moose in the city. So Anchorage, that's why I love living in Anchorage, because it has everything. It has city stuff. It has rural stuff. Anchorage is a cool city.
That first of all, listen, love animals. I love them, but to be in an encounter with a moose, it
It can kill you.
yeah, I see one in Maine. I saw one in Maine.
Really? I never see
Yeah,
them.
I didn't see it in
I
Farmington. I saw it in, I believe, in near Bangor or something like that.
really? Yeah.
Yeah, just chilling, and
Yeah.
to me, it was the first time seeing a big wild animal, like
Mhm. Yeah.
no zoo, like
Yeah.
out of the cage.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool to see from a. I was in the car, so I was lucky, but I
Yeah.
can imagine walking like to the end of your street and just seeing
Uh-huh.
a moose chilling there.
They're there all the time outside of my house, especially during Halloween. They like looking for pumpkins. So they'll come right up on people's porches. Like they'll open the door. There's so many viral videos of people opening their door and a moose being right there.
And
Yeah.
that doesn't cause any like problems.
Sometimes it does there, but people know how to interact with them. So if you see, so for example, we were walking and we saw a mom and a baby, that's the most dangerous combo to
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
And so you stop and slowly walk away. You don't like make loud noises or scream. You also hide behind trees because they're not very mobile because they're so big and awkward. So you just like go from tree to tree to tree if they're chasing you.
Have you ever encountered being chased by a moose?
Not chased, but we were skiing and we were doing cross country skiing, Martin and I, and he was in front of me because he's a much better skier than I am. And all of a sudden I see him like purposely fall over to the side and hop out of his skis. And so I immediately do the same thing. I just fall over and we were about to run into a moose. And so that was the only time I've been actually scared that we were going to be attacked. We weren't. She was fine. She didn't care about us, but I was very nervous because she was very big and very close. So we popped out of our skis and then walked around to get away from her. So our friends, we got married in Alaska, and our friends had a way more dangerous interaction than we did while they were there. We felt bad for them.
Oh wow! And what about bears? Have you seen grizzlies?
Yeah, there's black bears
Um.
and grizzly bears in Alaska.
Oh my! And did you have an encounter with any grizzly or any black bear?
Nothing scary. We actually, one of our wedding gifts, which was one of the best experiences of my life, we went to an island where a lot of the biggest grizzly bears congregate. They salmon fish there. And so there's a picture of us. It's not a zoo. They're very much in the wild, but there are platforms above where they congregate. And
Mhm.
it's been there long enough. It's a national park. And so it's been there long enough where the bears are used to people being there, but there's like dozens of enormous brown bears fishing for salmon. And we were right there with them 10 feet away. So that was pretty scary. People have had interactions there in the park because they are wild bears, but I didn't have any scary ones.
That's crazy. Oh, but I've heard in Alaska, grizzlies known for killing people, or is
Not
that
really.
just a myth?
There are bear maulings every year. It does happen. But usually just if there's a cub involved, same thing. But people carry bear mace. I mean, when we hike, we carry bear mace just in case. So if you hunt in, not hunt, if you walk in groups, you're usually safe. Most of the bear maulings happen when someone's alone.
Wow.
But it does
Wow. All right.
happen.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I
So
know.
I heard that Alaska during the summer, there's no darkness.
It's so nice.
How long did it take for you to get accustomed to that?
The opposite was much harder to get used to be honest. It was the winter that was hard because there's no sunlight. So the winter, going to work in the dark and coming home in the dark, was awful. There's like a window of 4 hours of sunlight in the winter. So that
Yeah.
was much harder for me. We got a little lamp, one of the it emits vitamin D lamp thing, a happy light, I call it. So that took a while, but the summer is awesome because people are like active at midnight going for walks because it's still
Going for
daylight.
walks where bears and moose.
They're fine.
Oh my
You get used
god.
to
That's crazy. Wow. So did you find, so during the winter when it's always dark,
Yeah.
were you always tired? Did you had to really?
Yeah, you get tired way because again, like it's the school day, for example, I go in at 7 and then come home at 4 and it's pitch black dark. So I want to go to bed. You're not really motivated to do anything in the winter. Even in Maine, you know this, like Maine got dark at like 7 p.m., but
Yeah.
3 p.m. pitch black dark is weird.
Yeah. So how was teaching in Alaska?
Fun. I was at a really unique school. So it's and this is actually the school I'm going back to. I just accepted my next job.
Congrats, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, it's an independent school, so they kind of do things differently. It's small. I've worked at huge classes. My current school is huge. I have 30 kids in 6 class. I have 170 students right now. So
Damn.
yeah, it's a lot. So that is a really small school, which is nice because I get to know the students very intimately, and the parents are involved, which is mostly good. It's a cool school. It's a really cool school.
Wow. And what were some of the differences that you saw in Maine that you saw in Alaska when you were teaching?
Maine, I was working at a public high school, and then Alaska, it's independent preschool through 8th grade. And I was teaching 6, 7, and 8, all subjects, which I had never done up until that point. So like me teaching science, health, math, social studies, that was brand new. And teaching a younger grade, I hadn't taught that either. So it was really hard. I was working consistently 12, 14-hour days to try to plan and prep.
Wow.
It's just I hadn't done it before. And it's really different teaching younger kids. What grade are you, what age are you working with the most?
So right now, so I teach at an academy.
Yeah.
Um, so usually I teach adult and kids. So I'm teaching the youngest age I'm teaching is probably seven
Yeah.
to probably 7, and the oldest person I teach is like 82 years old.
Wow, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
Good for
it
you.
is. At first I was a little nervous because I never taught adults before. I only before I moved to Valladolid, I was living in Barcelona,
Mhm.
right before the pandemic happened. And before the pandemic, I was teaching just little kids. I was teaching 3 year olds. I was teaching 4 year olds,
Little.
all the way up to maybe 14.
Mhm.
So I was teaching in a public school. And then when I got here, I was teaching adults. Like my boss was like, "Hey, I know you've only taught kids, but I think adults would be good for you too." I'm like, "Whatever, I
Oh.
don't think so, but we'll try." But it's been easy. I actually thought I would like teaching kids more, but I prefer teaching adults.
Mhm.
It's easier. But yeah, the ages I work with normally, my most of my classes are like teenagers from like 11 to like 16 years old,
Yeah,
more or less. Yeah. Yeah. It's
but it's
it's
a
interesting,
transition.
but it's a fun job.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. So right now you're teaching in DC, right?
Just outside of DC. We're in Virginia technically, but yeah.
And how are you liking it there?
We hate living here. Just because we're in suburbia. If we were in the city, I would love the city. If we were in the city, or even if we were in the countryside, there are parts of Virginia that are really beautiful, but we are smack dab because this is where we could afford to live. We are in suburbia. And so we can't walk any, like, I'm looking outside and there's Ruby Tuesdays, and that's it. It's just houses and houses and houses. Um, and we don't love not being able, there's really poor public transportation. We have to drive a half an hour just to get to the metro, and then we take the metro when we go into the city. But so
Ooh.
yeah, we like being able to walk places. We like being outside and doing things outside, and that's not really what the lifestyle is here. But
Mhm.
I love my school. I've had a really good experience at my school.
And how long you been living there?
We're a year and a half. We're going on 2 years.
2 years. So why did you decide to make that transition down to
Question. Yeah,
Virginia?
that's a great question. It's all my husband's fault. He's getting his PhD, and he got a really good offer for them to pay for him to get his PhD here. So we moved for him, and he got approved to be remote starting in June. So we're out.
Okay. Okay. Wow. All right. So I wanted to ask you, so being a teacher, you're very big on inspiring inspiring youth. So what do you think, like being a teacher, what is one of the main things you want to do helping this next generation grow? What things do you like to see, and what ways are you inspiring youth to make a difference in the world?
Yeah, we have the most important job there is, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Every single day we impact kids, and sometimes we know it and sometimes we don't know it. And so I'm on the clock always. And I try to lead by example and be empathetic. Kids see how I react to a student who is maybe making a poor choice. They see how I react to him. If I yell at the kid or if I show empathy, they watch that. They see how I react to a student who does something well. If I make a huge deal out of it, or if I'm more subtle. So it's really important to me to kind of model behavior that I hope kids can emulate. And so I'm silly. I try to be patient. I'm empathetic. I don't take myself too seriously, but I have high expectations, but provide an abundance of support, and so it's kind of like I'm a warm demander. I am demanding them to try and to get better and to care about their learning, but I'm going to support them and love them thoroughly. So that's kind of my mantra of how I teach.
I like that. I like that. And what is one thing you would like to see change
Mm.
in the educational system?
I sound like a boomer when I say this, but technology really, purely social media, I think, is both great and also so dangerous for kids, because they just have been exposed to everything way too soon. And there's only so much that schools can do to prevent that. A lot of it is parenting, but my school last year, we allowed phones in school, and this year they're off limits. And to see the changes kids have had, has been vast. When they aren't attached to their phone all the time, they're way more willing to talk to other people, to talk to each other. But I wish that we would rely less on tech and have them talk to each other more, because they're just not doing it at home. It's not like they don't have friends over as often. They're just FaceTiming and calling it good. So those social skills have kind of gone downhill a little bit. And this is awesome that we're able to do this right now. This is so cool. And we should do this, but it shouldn't be the only way that we communicate with people,
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. It's a shame that technology has made a difference in some good ways, but
For sure. Absolutely.
yeah, but and also in ways it hasn't, because we are starting to become less interactive with each other. And it's like we don't even know each other anymore. And school is like the the foundation, the place where you express yourself and where you meet people.
Mhm.
And if this type of fulfillment is taken away, I think it could be a challenge later down if we don't have some kind of control over it. And I think some technology is great, but not to use it for everything, not for it to become a reliability.
Yeah.
So that would be really good. I think so. But what do you think about what is something you would like to also see change now? Because in some countries, the school systems are not really as where they should be. They're teaching classes that are not going to really help in the real world.
Mhm.
What class would you like to see be an importance for schools?
I just wish the way we can keep the subjects, because this is a hot topic for everyone right now in education. I'm not saying we have to get rid of any subject necessarily, but how we teach it should be project based. We should do more group work and less busy work. I don't know why we're still at this point teaching relying so much on a worksheet and busy work. I do a lot of projects with my students that are real life. So we'll have actual debates and invite people in, or we'll make a product and actually give it to the community. And so just real life things that, as you said, are valuable in the future and aren't just a project that, or something that you're going to make, a poster that you're going to make and then throw in the trash. So I try to, everything that we do, I try to have a purpose that's further than just my classroom, which is hard. Sometimes it's not easy. But we definitely should be supporting kids into what they want to do. Tech programs are really important because college is not for everybody and shouldn't be for everybody. So there are plenty of people who are making more money than me who didn't go to college. So encouraging kids to explore tech programs if they want to go into welding, or if they want to go into dentistry, that they can have that experience instead of just classic, no, you have to take this AP class and that AP class. So personalizing education more and making it less, this is what you have to do, and way more open.
And one thing before I ask you, I have random questions I want to ask you. You're gonna have to give me answers. All right, I'm gonna give you some random questions. But before we go into that, tell me, what would you like to see change for teachers? Because teachers all over the world are getting paid the less. And no, money is not the importance. It's not. But money is a necessity, right? Why are teachers being paid less when they have the biggest job? What would you like to see change for teachers to have a understandable, well, not understandable,
Fair
a
compensation.
yes.
Paid fairly. Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think that why it's not happening is because they know we'll do it anyway. I mean, I am an employee who is so dedicated to my job that I don't know if I would strike. I would think about it, I guess, but who would actually suffer if I strike? Kids. And so I think that's why it's been allowed. Teachers are just being run over because we're good people and we care more about our job than we do how much we're making. But at the same time, 5 of my colleagues are working second jobs. They should not have to be working second jobs. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it has to just be an actual livable wage. And that's dependent on where we're living. Like, I'm making more money here in DC than I would in Maine, for example, as I should be. The cost of living is way higher here than it is there, but it's still not represented. Like, the ratio is still less. So yeah, I think we definitely need to invest more money in teachers. Otherwise, like I said, I have 170 students. I asked them what they want to be. At the beginning of the year, we had that conversation. 2 said teachers. 2. No one's going to start doing it. We already have a huge sub shortage problem. I have to cover for my colleagues at least once a week. I'm pulled out of the one break I have in the day to go and sub because we have no subs. Nobody wants to be in education. It's crumbling, and we're on the precipice of an educational demise, and it's going to be bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's sad. It's sad that
not just job.
Yeah, it's the greatest job. But just for years now, that being one of the worst paying jobs just never made sense to me, because they have one of the biggest responsibilities, and that's to develop the child, and that's to have these theories on how to give them knowledge. It's just a topic that a lot of people don't talk about, and I think it's something that needs to be put on the table and it needs to be discussed, because you have a lot of people willing to um use their time and to educate children, and like, that's a hard thing to do, and I think it's necessary that they get their flowers and they get the benefits that they need, and I think they should just be making more money than what they're doing.
And we'll get better applicants if we do that. There'll be fewer. Yeah. There are a lot of teachers who are not good, and that's an issue. And so if you pay us more good people are going to want to come into our profession. So that's another perk of it. If you want better employees, make the job more applicable to them.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm with you.
Yeah. All right. So before we end the show, I want to ask you a bunch of random questions. All right.
Okay.
Some of them are deep questions. Some of them are funny questions. All right.
Okay.
So, all right. My first question: honesty or loyalty?
I'm supposed to say the first thing that comes into my head.
You can say that, or you can just give me a quick answer.
I think
And why?
honesty. I think honesty, and honesty is the one thing that, as far as teaching, bringing it back to that, I can forgive kids for nearly everything. But if they blatantly lie to me when they know how I'll respond if they're honest, I have an issue with that. So honesty isn't really important to me.
Honesty. Okay. Would you prefer doing the things right or doing the right thing?
Definitely doing the right thing. That one's easy for me.
Okay, why?
Because I definitely believe in good karma, and that even if no one is looking, you should do the right thing. Like, you should pick up the trash when you see it. If you're right there, just do the right thing. Because if you do the right thing and the other billions of people in the world also do the right thing, then everything will be better.
Oof. Okay, I like that. One invention that you would prefer to be uninvented.
Oh my gosh. All these kitchen things. These kitchen things are unreal. What is the one? What's the hot one that everyone loves so much? That thing.
The
Instapot.
Instapot. What is
Everyone
Instapot?
is so obsessed with the Instapot. Have you heard about this Instapot thing?
No, I haven't heard about the. What is the Instapot?
It's some stupid, maybe this was a dumb answer to the question, but people are so obsessed with it. It's like a fancier version of the crock pot. I don't know. Again, this takes me back to Tanzania. Like, there's so many things that we don't need that we have, especially with cooking. Like, you don't need something that only serves one purpose. You really need a big tool that can only do one thing. It's crazy to me how we have so many of those in our culture. And so those drive me crazy. We don't have it. We have none of those in my house with my husband. We have none of them. So things that only serve one purpose. I don't like those.
Okay. Oof. All right. If you woke up tomorrow being 6 years old, how would you live your life?
6 years old?
Yes.
Oh, how would I live my life? I hope I would live it similarly to how I did. But maybe not take everything so seriously. It took going to Peace Corps and failing. I was so competitive before I went there, and I really wanted to be the best at everything. And you knew me in college. I was very uptight. There were things I didn't do because I thought that was bad, what bad people did. So I would have relaxed a little bit and learned quicker that people are not bad and good. That's not how it works. People can make great choices and make poor choices and still be a good person. So I wish I would have cooled that down when I was younger.
Yeah. All right. Would you rather give or receive bad advice?
Bad advice?
Would you rather give or receive bad advice?
I cannot give bad advice. That's not nice. So I guess I'd rather receive it and then try to work it out. I could not give bad advice. I think I try to give good advice.
Okay. No, of course. But if you had to pick one, give or receive bad?
I guess receive.
Why?
I don't want to give someone bad advice.
That makes sense because it becomes your problem, I guess.
Yeah, and that's on you. You did it. You shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, no, that's true. I agree with that. All right, I agree with that one. All right, so if you can only accomplish one thing in your life, what would it be?
To make the people around me feel loved and happy. Definitely.
Okay, I like that one. That's a good one. No, that was a really good one. Like all right, so if you could have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh my gosh, this is a question that people know the answer to. Do you know your answer to this question?
Yes, I have
What is
three.
your answer? I'm gonna steal it.
I have LeBron James.
Oh my God.
I have
Mr.
Dalai
Baby.
Lama. Yeah, LeBron James is my favorite athlete.
Have you seen the nonsense he's been up to lately, though? Come on.
All right, no, I don't think. All right, first of all, you're a Celtics fan, I'm guessing, right?
No.
Oh, you're not. Who's your team?
Well, my team used to be the Mavs. Currently, and not just because they won recently, but the Bucks. I like teams who work hard and don't whine all the time.
Oh, okay.
So the Celtics suck.
Celtics are horrible.
Quote me on that. Feel free to post that anywhere.
No. Trust me. I hate Boston fans.
They're the worst fans ever.
I'm a Knicks fan. We're doing good.
You guys are doing great.
We're doing great. It looks like we are going to miss the play-in, and we're gonna actually play in the playoffs,
Yeah,
which is like going to the championship for us. I'm happy
Bronson
about
is huge for you guys.
it. Yeah, I'm a
Been
little
great.
upset he didn't make the
Yeah, me
All-Star
too.
team.
Me
Julius
too.
Randle did.
Yeah,
My hat goes off to Julius Randle, but I prefer Jalen
me,
Bronson
me too.
because he's been playing phenomenal.
Me too.
But I'm excited because we are playing really hard. I like Tom Thibodeau. I like that we are finally moving forward after 10 years
Yeah, wild.
of just being horrible. So
Yeah.
I can't complain about it personally. I can't.
Yes. Oh,
But
you impressed me.
no, LeBron is all right. LeBron has his moments, but for me, he's
He's
not
a
only
middle schooler. LeBron is a middle schooler. He is. Everything about him is middle school. I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete, possibly the GOAT, but he's still a 12-year-old.
possibly he will be the GOAT when he passes that record. I'm telling you right now, he will be the GOAT. But not just him as a basketball player, off the court is where I'm more like, okay, he's one of
He's very
my
generous.
favorite
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, he's very generous. He means well. He does.
Yeah, and he also created a school called the I
And
Promise
he's putting
School.
more money in that school than any other rich person. So, props to him. Yeah, no,
Props to LeBron.
I'm giving him flack because I hate people who complain about referees. Everyone in basketball knows that referees are terrible. This is not a surprise. So when he is surprised every single time, it's gotten old to me. Come on, man. You've been playing this
Yeah,
too
no,
long.
it's
Get
true.
over
It's
it.
true.
They're awful.
Yeah. So I have LeBron. I have Dalai Lama.
Okay. I approve.
I've read most of his books. I just love the way he lives life, and I think I would like to get there one day, just be mentally strong like that. So the
Sure.
Dalai Lama is definitely one.
That's
And
good.
then the last one, just because it's like a childhood thing, kind of,
Mhm.
for me it would be I always switch my answer. It would be either Eddie Murphy because I love comedy,
That's hilarious.
or it would probably be Jackie Chan.
Okay.
I was a big fan of Jackie Chan's movies, but for me, Eddie Murphy is not only a comedian, but he's a genius. He's a writer, he's an entertainer in general. And I think for me, just to be in a room with somebody like that can make me laugh the whole time, I think that would be incredible. But
Fair.
LeBron and Dalai Lama are definitely
Fine.
1 and 2. I would say another name, but he's not really doing so good in the media right now. I would say
Start with
Kanye
a
West.
K. Oh. I mean, no, Kanye is also, if you want to talk about a brilliant musician, he's
Yes, but something is going on right now, and I would love to sit down and talk to him. He's one of my favorite artists.
yeah,
But right now it's just not looking too good for him.
okay.
Yeah. So what about you?
Okay, Maya Angelou, and she's number one probably. She's number one because
Yeah,
I also
man.
I write as well. Nothing official, nothing published, but that's a goal of mine someday. And so she does it so brilliantly. So I'd love to talk to her about that.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Maya Angelou. Wow. Anybody else?
Not that I can think of. I mean, now LeBron's on my mind, but I would like to sit down with LeBron just to like stare at him and wonder what's going on.
Okay. And then the last question I'll ask. What is a miracle that happens every day?
That the kids who have been forced to turn into adults way too young, of which I have a lot of, that they get up every day and do what they do and don't think twice about it. I mean, I have some students who are taking care of their whole families. And the reason that I know this is because they write about it and they share that with me because we've built that rapport. And I can't believe the things that kids are able to do without even thinking about it. So that's a miracle of the bravery that kids have. They are incredible. Kids really are incredible. And that's why I love my job. I get to know them all the time. 170 of them I'm getting to know right now, which
Yeah,
is so special.
that's pretty cool. All right, so before we end it, what is a message you would like to send to kids that are going to fulfill their dream, that are trying to figure out what they want to do in their next step of life, that are trying to find a way to be consistent? What is a message you would say to them?
Yeah, I would tell them to it's kind of what I told you, that you don't know what you're capable of until you do it. And so sometimes it is better to choose the road that looks harder, because it will make you a stronger person, a better person, if you choose that, rather than doing the thing that seems easy. So definitely to embrace those challenges that pop up in
And yes, okay. And then what about the teachers? What would you say to a teacher that's starting their career?
to enjoy it, to write things down. I have started to really write things down. I wish I had done that earlier. And that they influence kids every day and they can't forget it. And so even if something is going wrong in their personal life, it is so important to kind of compartmentalize, as hard as it is sometimes for us. But those kids deserve your best every day. And that's why our job is so important and why we should make so much money.
I like that. This has been Just a
Okay.
Thought podcast. Liz, we are excited. I'm excited that you came on. I think just hearing about your journey and some of the crazy things that you had to go through and where you're at now, I think it's incredible because you're growing. You're not only growing, but you're changing people and you're making the world a better place. And I think just to see you go through those experiences and just being able to know you as a person, I'm excited and I'm happy that you have came on and shared your experience. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ray. It was a lot of fun.
Yes,
Nice to see
yes,
you.
yes. It was good to see you too. Okay.